And welcome to Battle Arena. This is the show hosted by the Trading Force Podcast Network, help you get better at League of Legends. Basically, what we do is we take 10 people who are wanting to get better at League from Silver 5 all the way up to Gold 1. We throw them in battle. We throw them in here. We do quick fives, and we see how they do. We break down everything from bans all the way to mechanics on each lane and things you guys can do better or things you are doing well. I am Cargen. I'm going to go fly this solo for now. SantaNa will be here soon, or SantaNa Champagne. I like SantaNa better. We got a pick and ban phase going on here, so we're just going to hop right into this. We got Shyvana, Garen, Fiora bans, Mordekaiser, Darius, Echo bans. All fine bans. I really have no issues with any of them. Garen's a nuisance. Shyvana's still a nuisance coming out of the jungle with Devour. Mordekaiser, people just don't want to deal with him. Darius is fine too. He's kind of strong too. He can be a nuisance in top lane. Fiora fine. Echo fine. So bans are good. We've got Thresh, Rek'Sai, Ahri, Vladimir, and Misfortune coming in from blue side, and then we got a Morgana Malphite, Yasuo, Varus, and Lee Sin coming in for red team, and maybe Lee Sin. We'll see. We'll see what Andrew decides to lock in here as the last pick. But big MFA is pretty standard. MF and Varus, that's an interesting matchup. That should be both very immobile ADCs. Varus is kind of going to get the edge in my book, just simply because he is a champion with a great CC ultimate. Whereas Misfortune's ultimate's a little lackluster, and they are dealing with the Yasuo, so win wall can be very devastating, especially for a Misfortune ult. But otherwise, blue teams, all the comps coming in from both sides are fine. I'm a little worried the amount of AD red teams got, but then again, Malphite and Varus might be able to shore that up with just their incremental damage along with Morg. But overall, teams are pretty fine so far. Nothing too much I can pick on at this point in time. Guys are just picking what they want to pick, so we'll start with top lane, though. I honestly think Vladimir farms well. I think in this lane it's going to slowly become something Malphite just can't handle. Vladimir's kind of a big nuisance. He has been for a while, actually. In terms of AP top laners, Vlad's one of those that's been doing well. So I'd like to see Lee Sin try and do some stuff early game before Vladimir ramps up that far on. Cool, 3-minute delay already. We'll see how that lane in particular plays out. We do have a Rek'Sai into Lee Sin, which normally is considered Rek'Sai as a good pick into Lee Sin, so we'll see how Ander handles the matchup pretty well. That, among other things. Both can gank pretty early, so I'd like to see these guys hit lanes early on. Usually very nice to see happen. Both are very capable of doing it as well. Mid lane, let's take a look at mid lane. Ahri versus Yasuo. Not 100% really. Mid lane is one of my weaker roles in general. But it's one of those lanes where I think Yasuo is going to want to farm for a while. I think Ahri, once she hits level 6, as long as she can work on win wall, could do a lot of good because she's fairly mobile into Yasuo, is able to do a ton of damage. So we'll see how that lane plays out. Let's look at bot lane. Bot lane, what we got? Thresh, Morg, and Varus Misfortune. That's an interesting lane. I think early on, pre-level 6, I think this is going to be a Thresh MF lane. Ultimately because MF's really good at bullying early levels, and Morg's bindings really don't start to hit hard and root for a long time up until like levels 4, 5, 6. And once both Varus and Morgana have ultimates, that's going to be a very hard lane to stop. And if MF gets caught out in any way, that could be very dangerous. So we'll see how those lanes play out. It's always easy to kind of have speculation coming into lane matchups, but I'd like to see some early ganking. Both sides of them, blue and red, have ganking potential there. So that should be interesting to see. Actually, it's really interesting. I didn't notice this up until this point because I was just now checking summoners. MF's got Ignite, which I would rather see heal. There's several reasons for that, because like the mobility is invaluable and just to be able to get out of danger is really good. We'll see how that plays out. If MF's able to bully well and she's not punished at all, that's fine. But if MF starts shoving the wave, which MFs kind of have a habit of doing just because they like to use double up to last hit a minion and try and get a little incremental poke. But if she starts shoving and she gets punished by Lee Sin, this could be really bad for her because she'll have no way of really getting out of danger except for her flash. We got about 20 seconds left. Before we hop into game and we start kind of breaking this down a little bit more, this is a part of the Trinity Force Podcast Network group of podcasts. If you guys weren't aware of this, a lot of podcasts for League of Legends. We've got The Proper with Adam Potofolia Cosmo breaking down the game, kind of every patch, yada yada, talking about the game at in-depth level. We've got the LCS Rundown. We've got the Oz LOL breaking down the Oz scene and the Oceanic scene, I should say. And then we've got 4 wards, which they should be going live here at the top of the hour. I'll be moving to T-Force Podcast 2 after this game, but top of the hour, we will be seeing 4 wards here, so you guys can catch that live, or you can download it on iTunes, Stitcher, or however you get your podcast material. Also, don't forget, we also have the Trinity Force RPG games that happen on a regular basis. Check into those if you guys like any sort of tabletop RPGs you like having fun. We are now into the loading screen, finally. Did the screen switch? No, it did not. And I click and we swap. There we go. All right. All things aside, we got to look at the skins here. Blue team's got 4. That's not bad. MF's got a lot of good skins. If you love MF, get a skin. Arcade, you name it. A few good ones you can pick there. Red team, you only have 1. All right, Stalker, it's all on your shoulders, sir. Let's see what you can do with that Yasuo. But as we're in loading screen, we can kind of talk a little bit more. You know what? I forgot about Hearth of the Cards, guys. Do you believe in the Hearth of the Cards? The Horse Doctor, as you may know, is a gentleman who's been doing BA a lot. Started a Hearthstone podcast because why not? He was like, I hit Masters here. I'm going to go now and hit Masters in Hearthstone, which I think he did. It's a monthly thing, so hey, congrats there. But yeah, they've got a Hearthstone podcast, so if you're looking to get into Hearthstone, because I don't see why you wouldn't. I mean, you can play it pretty much anywhere, as long as you've got a smartphone or a tablet or a computer if you want to sit and play Hearthstone on a computer. So that we got a lot of podcasts coming around here, so a lot of content here. But right now, we're in Battle Arena, and we're here to get better at League of Legends. Think I'll break down a little bit more. I'm trying to think on how these lanes kind of want to play out early on. As I was saying earlier, both junglers have the potential to gank early. But in the event if junglers aren't ganking for whatever reason, like let's say Rek'Sai needs to farm up because he decided to go Devour, which don't do that, that's bad. But let's just say lanes aren't getting ganked early on. A lot of these lanes are pretty standstillish. I worry about Malphite's lane matchup right now in particular. Malphite, you're going against a Vladimir, which you have a mana resource pool. Vladimir only has his health pool. And once he's able to kind of sustain well in lane, it's going to be hard to really kick him out of lane, for lack of a better term. So this is going to be a situation where, as Malphite, you want to farm, and I think use your teleport in a situation and try and get an advantage in another lane. If you're not seeing any sort of gank assist coming in from Lee Sin. Because that's going to be a tricky lane. Like, once Vladimir hits, like, level 9+, he becomes a bit of a bear. So, that's something, too, when you're in champion selection, when you're in loading screen, understanding that, like, hey, this is going to be a problem. Malphite just, conceptually, is not going to be able to handle it forever. And that's, that's not, fault of the champion. Like, that's just situations you run into where it becomes a harder lane matchup later on in the game. Hey, there we go. Game. Scroll these down here. Flip. That was easy. Alright, let's take a look at these starting items. Flask coming in from Malphite, that makes sense. Boots 4 coming from Vladimir, sure. Fairly decent options. Doran's Ring is fine. Spell Thief on Morg, and Runic Shield from Thresh. All pretty standard. Got no complaints here. Very, fairly decent starting pages. We'll have the ever wonderful walkout. We'll get to take a look at see who's warding. Again, I like warding out early on. When you use trinket wards early on, you'll have them before junglers can gank. Like, a ward should be here regardless. Like, you don't need to stand there as a champion. Just put a ward there and have that vision there. Or if you want to go deeper, ward here if you get out of the gates fast enough. But you should be warding early. There's no reason not to. Like, blue team right now got a ward here. Rek'Sai is doing an invade. That's a little risky. It does mean if he decides to commit to this means he's not going to have any sort of leash, and that could be pretty dangerous if this doesn't pan out well. And as Malphite too, you kind of have to have some sort of awareness here. Again, like a ward. If you're walking out of base, kind of warding this area, standing here is a-okay. That's highly recommended. But with red team, with the amount of wards you guys have placed at this point, if you guys don't see Rek'Sai, it's something to kind of keep in mind. And if you see Misfortune and Thresh in lane early, that's a very good indicator that Rek'Sai is not getting leash here. And he's probably either going to be at blue or, in this weird situation, he's invading red. Hey, what's up, Alpha Killer? But Shadow Leash coming in here for red side. Lee Sin's going to have a lot of assists there, so that's good. That does mean that Lee Sin's not going to have a red buff. And this could be a little dangerous early on. If Rek'Sai can pull it off. Yeah, he should be able to smite. So he will get that. He will remove red from Lee, and that's going to kind of slow down his jungle. But I'm wondering at what cost that's going to be because he's at half health. Looking for an early gank. Looks like Kermit. Yeah, he took a little bit of damage. Good gank. Well done. Now, at that point, too, if Rek'Sai came from here, very good chance that he took red. And that's something you should be communicating, too. I mean, this gank was pretty bad. Unfortunately, Yasuo just got caught in a bad situation. Because you don't normally expect a gank from there, so that was fairly creative. Good job on Rek'Sai there. Good job. Early shove going on. Beaver's already low on mana. When you're in a lane... No, direct to camera stop. When you're in a lane like this... Let me switch to manual. Yeah, there you go. Beaver, you've got no mana and you got to deal with Ignite and Exhaust. Yep, okay, so... Unfortunately, Beaver was shoving the lane pretty hard here. And he had no mana. And all it took was a Thresh Hook to really seal the deal. You're dealing with double combat summoners. And it was something that I saw in Champion Select, and I said, we'll see how it plays out. Ignite Exhaust is devastating for anybody who's an immobile ADC like Varus. And you really can't push up that far if you've got no backup or support. Morg already had thrown her binding out, so you have to understand that you're in a situation where you're vulnerable. And you can't be pushed out that far with no mana. You're not going to be able to duel, especially in MF at that level. So good use of summoners and good job on these guys for capitalizing on an advantage like that. But you have to really use that minion wave when you're dealing with Thresh, because a hook can kill you, as you saw there, bud. Yep. Alright, so it looks like Lee Sin did find Rek'Sai's red buff. I think he left it counted, yeah? Yes, he did. So Lee did identify the fact that Rek'Sai was in fact in his jungle, went ahead and grabbed that red buff, and is it going to be worse for the wear there? He's going to see that, yeah, it's in fact gone. So he's not going to be too far behind because he did secure a red buff eventually. So good job there. Rek'Sai coming back to the return gank. A little slow on the knock up there. I'd be careful here. Blue side, I'd be careful. Yasuo still does have an Ignite to play with. You guys don't. A lot of posturing. I'd say if the gank doesn't work, just kind of back off. Lee still has a red buff to play with. And this could be pretty potent here. Really trying to force this pretty hard here. And now Ahri's out of mana. So Stalker probably should base at this point. He is at a high risk of getting killed. A little bit of fighting in the top lane. Yeah, Malphite is getting shoved in, which something I kind of expected. Like I said, Vladimir really doesn't have a health pool or doesn't have a mana pool to work with. He just has his health. And Malphite really can't outlive that, for lack of a better term. So he's going to have to go back to base and get some items quick. And just use his teleport here. Like Thresh based. Picking up Sightstone early on, that's good. Sightstone's really useful, especially with how active these junglers have been. I wouldn't be surprised to see some action bot lane here in the near future. Beaver is running low on mana. He's at 25%, and so is Morg. Yagdron coming from Malphite. There you go. Gate coming in from Rek'Sai. Good hook. Yep, Ignite was up, and quick gank coming in the lane, and easy peasy beautiful. All right, good job on the gank there. Very nice gank again coming in from ye old Rek'Sai. That's the danger of pushing out lane with Varus with no flash. It is fairly easy to just force out somebody. Unfortunately, once again, Ignite Exhaust proving to be quite the deadly combination. Nowhere to run, and with no flash to use, Varus is dead in the water, which is unfortunate. It could collapse on this. Yeah, Lee, unfortunately... No? Yep, there you go. One last auto. Unfortunately, Lee, you did have level 6 into Ahri's 6. She was able to kind of single you out. If you're trying to make it escape, you want to make sure you're kind of with your friends. Very few champions can catch up to you. Ahri's one of them. Did a good job in capitalizing that. Ooh. Alright, Morg's got Sightstone now. Hopefully, we won't see too many more situations where Varus is going to get caught out too hard, because he's unfortunately fairly behind. He's got to go 3 door. He went 3 Doran's deep, which I don't necessarily recommend, but in this situation, sure. You're getting hit pretty hard, and having a higher effective health pool against the Ignite should be useful. But at this point, you have to respect the fact that MF's going to have a much more potent power spike. Yeah, that double up looks pretty nasty already. Yeah, looks like Millhouse might have to play a little safer now, or at least base. Good kick. Still has pool, so he can still get out of this. Yeah, he's going to get... Oh, no. Stalker's roaming, too. He already's got flash on cooldown. He still has pool. He might still be able to make it out of this. Yeah. Yep. Good collapse on Yasuo's part. Giving Vladimir less places to run. They're able to convert on that pretty well. But also good response here on blue team, seeing that they invested 3 top lane. Go and grab this dragon. So they are going to get something out of this. MF got to stand a little closer to take that. Rek'Sai get hurt. So good conversions on this dragon, seeing that they invested everything onto Vlad. I'm going to go ahead and move out here. Vladimir TP back. He's got his items for Woda, sure. It's fine. Seekers on Ahri. Malphite. Not really have a whole lot to offer here. Your ult's on cooldown. Ahri's isn't. Yeah. If you don't have ultimate, Malphite, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can offer in that situation. Like, that's, like, your whole shtick is that ultimate and just being able to just hard CC a group in a team fight. Kind of standing there is not going to offer a lot for your team. So it's better just to get back into lane, try and farm it out. Just farm out as much as you can, and then use your ultimate when it's up for little skirmishes and team fights. I think Varus died again. From which I could assume would have been just a hook, followed by another use of Ignite and Exhaust. Yeah. Alright, I like the Cinder Hall pickup here for Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai doesn't necessarily need to do more damage here, more than he needs to be a frontliner. They already have a Vladimir, they have an Ahri. So, being more of a wall is better off in this situation. So I do like this pickup here. Ahri building into Hourglass, kind of understanding that a lot of this damage is going to be AD. So, good early Hourglass gives her some opportunities to engage. I.e. done for MF, because that lane's been pretty good so far. Good Lantern. If you know that unfortunately there's certain times where you just kind of have to respect the fact that if team's ahead and you know they're roaming up and they're sweeping out wards, you probably should just bail. Unfortunately, like, that's 3 people for you. But a good move there for the team. Oh. Good use of Rek'Sai ult. Yeah, unfortunately these guys might be coming too far behind. Yeah, more time to run. Yeah. Good, but good Rek'Sai ult there. You're able to gank top and then use your ultimate to go and hit bot lane. Yeah, shove lane and just get out of there at this point, Beaver. Unfortunately, this was a hard lane for you. Double aggressive summoners into an all-in lane like MF Fresh can be quite, I'd say, frustrating. So, good job with at least trying to stay up his farm as much as you can. I wouldn't have necessarily gone 3 Doran's Blades. I think that's a huge investment. I know the extra health's useful, but I would have tried and get to IE as soon as possible. Like, a second Doran's fine. Third means you're just going to be behind for a very long time. And with MF 500 with IE already, you won't be in a situation where you can duel her. Not for a long time, at least. Good ward coverage, too, here by blue team so far. Blue wards kind of across the river. Ward coverage on the river. Good line of scrimmage so far. These guys might be in trouble. No, yeah. Even with that teleport, unfortunately, you guys were a little outnumbered there. Malphite, I wouldn't have necessarily teleported there. I appreciate the effort, but unfortunately, your team's already in a really bad position. If you're teleporting in and your team's behind, you want to make sure that you are as ahead as possible. Or you have as much opportunity as possible. Ooh. Yeah. It's one of those games where the situation, unfortunately, it's a bit of a snowball. Rek'Sai did some work early on, was able to hit some lanes fairly early. put Yasuo a little behind. And Vladimir, fortunately, just had to survive in lane. There wasn't too much pressure, so it's one of those. It's a rough situation, unfortunately. Red team, I'd say play safe for a long time, but that's one of your few options. And hope Varus is able to kind of start picking up and Yasuo hits his power spike. But it is a long time off, so if you're picking any fights, it's got to be like a severe numbers advantage. 4v2's a start. I would stop here. This is too far. I wouldn't keep going. I would not keep going. Yeah. Guys, unfortunately, went a little too deep. Blue team owns their jungle, and you guys are only running your red side. They've got great ward coverage, and they just need to walk that back. Your best option, once you guys had pressured off there, either rush Dragon or try and wait for another pick opportunity. Going too deep without any sort of real huge ward coverage is going to leave you guys to an opportunity of getting counter-engaged like that. And that's exactly what blue team did there. So good falling back on blue team's end and waiting for backup to arrive. But, like, just checking vision out real quick. Red team doesn't have a whole lot to offer. Like, you got a ward in this pit here, and that's about it. Yeah, like, you've got nothing here. I'd say once you guys got past river, I would have backed off and tried to drop a couple wards to try and get some vision control, as opposed to digging as deep as you can. I know at a certain point you got to try and... Yeah. Vladimir does damage now. He's got Abyssal Woda. I don't know. Maybe? Maybe you got... he might have this, Beaver. Just gotta turn around auto. Hey, ooh. Yep, Vladimir's hitting that point where he's healing for a lot of health. It's unfortunate. A lot of red team's composition, I say for lack of a better term, needed a little bit of assistance from me. And he wasn't able to find it because Rek'Sai 2 is a very strong jungler. And so long as Rek'Sai was matching Lee Sin's presence, it put red team in a real severe disadvantage. So, it was kind of, not necessarily it was red team's game to win, but blue just had to participate in ganks to kind of keep this even. So far, props on Rek'Sai for being where he needs to be. But that's quite a bit to take away from this game so far. Like, double aggressive summoners. If I'm a mobile ADC and I'm dealing with an all-in lane with an exhaust and an ignite, I would make sure that I'm not shoving lane too deep, because one small misstep does mean you're just gonna die. Which is a lot what happened on that one, Beaver. It's just ultimately what you ran into was a lane that could kill you and did at every opportunity. It was less situation for them to play well than you just to misplay once. And then I'm assuming every time you died was usually because Thresh landed a hook. So in a situation like this, I'd play very, very far behind minion waves and making sure you're using minions to block yourselves. And making sure you're not shoving the wave too hard. Varus kind of loses a lot of his dueling potential when he's lower out of mana. And early on what I saw there was like you're at like no mana shoving a wave into tower. I know the rush level 2 is always important, but you have to pay special mind to a double aggressive summoner lane. And you have to let them put themselves in a situation where they can get counter engaged. Because a lot of times when I saw you got killed, good Malphite ult, I think that might have been too little too late. That's exactly what your team comp wanted to do. But unfortunately, you guys were a little too far behind for that to pull off. But good at least execution on that part. Unfortunately, you guys are really far behind. Sorry to say. But good job there. Good effort. I always love to see you guys try and at least do what you guys were intending to do, as opposed to just giving up. So good job there. You guys really did try and pull off a fight there. You did get Vladimir, so hey, good job. Checking builds. Yeah, at this point, guys, like, blue team's ahead by a severe amount of gold. So it's rough stuff, but a lot of it kind of is. A lot of it's understanding like what your guys' win conditions were in this game. It was stopping Vladimir was going to be really hard. So it was getting either Yasuo or Varus off the ground. Because in terms of champions that could shut down Vladimir, Varus would have been a good option, just because he's got a healing debuff and one of the few left in the game, actually. Keep looking at items here real quick. See if I can't deduce any sort of info here. Morg, you don't have any boots. A lot of Morg's aggression, or a lot of Morg's like, I guess threat, comes from her bindings and her mobility. Moby boots really early on is really useful on her. I like to use really a lot, but her being able to move around the map quickly and effectively is one of her strong traits. Moby boots are a very cheap investment. Like you're talking like an 800 gold like side trip to go ahead and just grab extra speed. And being able to move very fast with Moby Boots, very useful. So after Sightstone, I would detour right into Moby Boots, and then focus on Zhonya's Hourglass or finishing Frost Queen's Claim, depending on what your team needs. I'd say Zhonya's if you need engage potential, Frost Queen's Claim if you're looking to try and single out targets and land easy bindings. Either or would have been good here, but Moby Boots are definitely a must, because you want to be able to be faster than your opponent, and you want to be able to outmaneuver them. Yeah, decent flash play. Yeah. Unfortunately, it looks like blue team is just too far ahead at this point. Like, they've got strong carries, and they've got carries with gold. That should be game. If not, 2 Nexus towers down, maybe. That was a little greed. It's close to overcut, Sailor. I don't like calling it, but unfortunately blue team's just so far ahead. That the only way that this game turns red team's favor if it takes 30 minutes more and their team gets items. I don't see that happening because Vladimir's looking to push last inhib, and he is by far one of the more fed carries on the team. Yeah, he does still die though pretty well. But it's blue team's map. I'd say ward up, grab dragon, finish out game. There's one last open inhib. So just, it's simple thing in chats. Group up and find that final push. You guys have the people to do it. I know you guys are picking Baron. I mean, you can Baron. I don't necessarily think you guys need a Baron at this point. But you certainly can. I make sure you guys get the ward control over there at least. Good upgraded trinkets from you guys. On both ends too. You know, for those who've afforded it and who can't. Good job there. Darsha, I wouldn't necessarily recommend Dead Man's Plate on him. You did get face about, and that's good. Dead Man's, I don't know. I don't know if you need extra mobility. I know you're kind of Thresh's whole gimmick. Well, ooh, that was close. I don't know. I would have recommended something else, possibly Frozen Heart, something of the like. No, I mean, that was a 3-man ult. Yeah, there we go. This game. Alright, this will wrap up. I'll do the usual sort of pick by pick there. Kind of talk about each person and their builds, yada yada. And we'll kind of dig and get what sort of analysis we can on this game. I think a lot of it was determined here. Let's see. Let's pull this up. Slide it here. OBS, work with me. OBS working with me. Okay, cool. Yeah, we know about the gold. We know about the ward coverage. Blue team was winning in wards, but that's not really... Not a lot to say on that one. This game kind of got snowballed after like the 12-minute mark. When Vladimir kind of took off as well as Misfortune. It puts a lot of pressure on Lee, who unfortunately is an early game jungler, and Rek'Sai does have a mid to late game presence when you build Sword Durable. So we'll kind of break this down player by player. We got Thresh starting off here on the blue team. You had some hooks that were on point. I would assume that every hook landed onto Varus with summoners up usually meant into killing Varus. And that's one of the bigger weaknesses when you pick an immobile ADC like that. It's... You have to really respect what summoner spells are up and what your opponent can do in a matter of 5 seconds. And when we're talking about Thresh and Misfortune, who had Ignite Exhaust, you guys took advantage of every opportunity you had. Black Shield or not, I don't think that would have mattered all too much when you're dealing with summoners like that. But good job on you for at least identifying and throwing out hooks and fighting him when you could, and getting that gold lead started. So you were kind of the catalyst in that lane that started a lot of this. So good job there. You got Sweeper. Good job. Dead Man's Plate, again, I'm not necessarily sold on the item. I see its purpose on a support because it is an item that gives armor and health that's not Randuin's, and that additional slow can be fairly useful. I'd still rather see an item like Frozen Heart, especially if you're dealing with a Lee Sin, Yasuo, Varus. The CDR would be useful for throwing out more hooks and more flays too, and giving you a little bit deeper mana pool to work with. So kind of keep that in mind and consider it if you would. But you're ahead, so you decided, armor health, why not? I only need to throw a hook once if I'm landing him, so I'm not going to hate on it too much, but I think moving forward, try use Frozen Heart more if this is a little bit more of an even-up game. That would be my recommendation. Rek'Sai early on, you had a lot of ganks. You made sure your presence was known level 2, which I liked a lot. You had a very risky invade, which wasn't punished. I would definitely make sure that you are very, very certain you're not getting invaded on. Because if you got collapsed upon, you might have been in a lot of danger there. But fortunate enough for you, you were able to get a red buff early on and gank from an angle that's not normally seen. So good job there. So I can't necessarily criticize too hard on that jungle start. You're able to basically outmaneuver your opponent, fight an early red, and gank from an awkward angle. Good job. You also were hitting lanes just overall early, and hitting them hard and just showing your presence, which I do like and appreciate out of a jungler. If you're enforcing yourself as much as you can just to basically put pressure on the enemy and force them to play at least a little bit safer, it gives your allies an opportunity to play aggressive and gives them that sort of flexibility in lane. You did that mid lane, you did that bottom lane, you made sure that your opponent didn't forget about you, and that's really important. You went Cinderhulk, which I like. You went Randuin's. I'm assuming Tiamat would have went into Titanic Hydra, which is a build I'm A-okay with. I think Titanic Hydra with Cinderhulk's really good, especially with the Randuin. So builds on point. You built armor. You were itemizing against what was in front of you. Good job there. Sweeper? Yeah, all right. I love having sweepers on junglers, especially the upgraded ones. So good job all around there. You built well. You ganked well. And I think you were the big part on why the game snowballed. Like, the early kill bot lane, sure, that's all fine and dandy, but you enforcing your lane presence, or you enforcing your jungler presence on lanes was really good.
User joined your channel.
Hey, who dat? Is that you, SantaNa?
Of course it is. Hello, everyone.
Hey, what's up, SantaNa? We're just breaking down Game 1 real quick before we head on to Game 2 on T-Force Poddex 2. I'll let you guys know before we cut stream. We'll be going to T-Force Network 2. That way, 4 Wars can go live here. But we are, in fact, breaking down the game here in terms of items, stuff like that. We are on Ari, who built well. You did fine in lane. You had a lot of Gengases from Rek'Sai, which helped keep your lane fairly even, allowed you to farm safely. So good job there. Hourglass was fine, allowed you to use that. Mortal Namicon, good. Needless. Oh, that's pretty good. Upgraded Trinket, good job there. Vladimir, you had a pretty straightforward easy lane. You kind of bullied Malphite because you didn't have a mana pool, and he did. So good there. You go in Woda, Abyssal, Zonia's Hourglass. Yeah, all fine items on Vladimir. You were big, you were strong. You were 10, 3, and 8, Vladimir. Good job. I'm not going to criticize you on not upgrading Trinket because everybody else did. But, yeah, no, upgrade that, though. MF, we'll talk a little bit about your build's fine. You got an IE, you got Bloodthirst, you got Static Shift. I don't necessarily like Ignite, especially on an ADC that's fairly immobile. I prefer heal a lot of times. You're in a situation where when your support went all in, you're able to add to that and you're able to get kills early on. If you're in a situation where that didn't work, you might have been at a lot of risk without heal mid to late game. But you did make use of Ignite whenever it was off cooldown, so that much I do appreciate. So you're at least using your summoners to your advantage. I would highly recommend the further you climb, taking heal, because situations like that become less and less frequent, and your win condition kind of changes in lane as opposed to killing your opponent as much as possible to trying to out-farm and out-pressure as much as you can. And heal kind of removes a sort of utility away from an ADC where you normally would love to have that. Mort did what you can in lane. You had a tough situation on your hands. You needed time to get to level 6 to really start enforcing your presence against the Thresh. Black Shield's all fine and dandy, but the amount of damage MF and Thresh were doing early on was just too much for Varus. Again, I was recommending earlier, as opposed to Sightstone and kind of building a lot of random pieces to a puzzle, go right to Mobility Boots and then get Hourglass. That should probably be your de facto build more 9 times out of 10. Is Sightstone, Moby Boots, Zonia's Hourglass, so you can engage for your team. Now, in this game, that's not necessarily the case. You did have a Malphite and Yasuo for engage potential along with Varus. So as opposed to Hourglass, you could have upgraded Frost Queen's Claim to try and slow down opponents so you can make opportunities happen there. But Hourglass is almost 9 times out of 10 like your next item once you get core from Sightstone and Mobies. So it's a critical key in Morg's kit, be able to use your ultimate, Hourglass, and allow your team to kind of reap the profits of that chaos you sow. You need to have that in your build like sooner than not. And since Moby Boots are so cheap and they give you such a huge advantage with your mobility, that's always an item you want to pick up as soon as possible. Malphite, you had a hard lane. I'm not, unfortunately, Vladimir is just kind of a bully. I don't necessarily, I'm not in love with the Abyssal pick. I think there are better items you probably could have optimized for into Vladimir. That being said, you did the best you can under the circumstances. I don't know. It's not like I say. I know you did try and make something happen mid lane, but you didn't have ult up, so you kind of just stood there and became a liability. A lot of Malphite's potential comes from his ultimate. If it's not off a cooldown, you really can't do much without it. You're just kind of a big rock guy that throws boulders at people. And since your boulders wasn't going to kill area in one hit, you have to ask yourself why you were there in the first place. Without an ultimate, you really can't do much. So kind of head elsewhere and try and farm as you can. Even if that means letting the tower fall and maybe possibly just picking up the Krugs just to kind of just survive for a while. Just do that. Just try and keep yourself relevant. I know it's tricky in that lane. Like Vladimir, just as soon as he had the ability to shove in, just shoved in. Forced you to farm under tower, which made it really difficult. I know Lee Sin did try and help. And your guys were actually able to capitalize a kill because of Yasuo's move to river, but ultimately you have to play around your cooldowns, and that's both teleport and your unstoppable force. So you got to play around those. Without them, you're not going to be able to offer too much in terms of engage. You're just kind of big rock guy. Yasuo, you got hit early on, my friend. You found a Rek'Sai coming from an angle that you would not expect, and I really can't you don't see that all too often. So you did what you can. You tried to engage when you could, and you tried to fight as best you can. Unfortunately, you weren't able to really convert any kills. It just was a situation where it snowballed out of control. Build's fine. I wouldn't recommend tier, but I know you did build that at the end. I'm assuming it's a sign to show how sad you were in that game. I'm sorry. But, that all being said, you farmed pretty well. You actually out-farmed Ari considering, so that's something to think about. So just keep up on farm and I guess respect the Rek'Sai game, because that's one of those sort of be sure to safely burning flash before the engage happens. Like, it's just one of those reflexes you just have to kind of, I guess, own. Like, hey, it's better to flash safely than to not flash at all and then die, or flash and then die. But yeah, that was a rough situation for you. You had a Rek'Sai kind of in the corner all the time. Varus. So you too had a rough lane. MF Thresh is not fun for Varus, especially if said MF has Ignite. When you play in a lane like that, there are certain situations where as an ADC support lane, you have to identify the fact that even with a level 2, your win condition or your ability to outduel your opponent is diminished. And with double aggressive summoner like that, pushing in and being out of mana at level 2 at enemy tower is fairly dangerous. The first kill kind of happened because you were ahead of your minion wave and you're trying to harass. You have to understand that, like, once Morg's bindings off of cooldown or on cooldown, Morg doesn't have a lot to offer in that, and Thresh has got hook and flay, and MF has a lot of damage that she can back up, especially with that Ignite. So you have to respect the amount of damage your opponent can deal, and that's something that you can kind of just look at and go, okay, this is what they can do, and just play safe. You don't have to make the plays in this lane. Let Morg do the plays and then poke from there. Like, if Morg lands a binding, throw a Q at him. Just poke. That's kind of what your lane's win condition was, and getting too close to Thresh meant that you were going to die. And that wasn't necessarily because, like, there's nothing you could do. Once your flash was on cooldown, they had Ignite Exhaust. You were not doing anything. Heal wasn't going to save you, and Morg really can't just black shield it all away, because there's just too much damage happening. Too much damage, too much CC. A lot of incremental magic damage, too. Something I didn't really point out is, like, Black Shield's great and all, but MF's got incremental magic damage. And Thresh does a fair amount considering of how much of a tank support he is, so you got to respect those little cues and just play safe. And there's nothing wrong with playing safe, freezing away that tower, and just waiting it out. Because your guys' level 6 was a little bit more powerful than more Thresh. Because theirs is strong, don't get me wrong, but Morgana ultimate with your ultimate means they're going to be rooted for a long time, and you could have waited for a Lee Sin or a Malphite teleport to really assist in that regard. So you got to play safe, you got to respect what's going on around you. So just play a little bit safer, and you should probably see a lot more in the future. Like a lot better sort of lane situations in the future. But again, you're not normally going to see an ADC with Ignite. That's not something you see all too often. Lee Sin. You had a rough go. You had Rek'Sai as an opposing jungler, and Rek'Sai is strong into Lee Sin. He has strong dueling potential, which Lee Sin likes to outduel other junglers and kind of enforce a 2v2 fight where they're on the advantage. Unfortunately, Rek'Sai was able to sneak in and invade your red, which forced you to play off of your normal jungle route and try and make something happen there. You did do everything that you could under the circumstances. One of the things I can recommend is, like, if you're in a situation where you're dealing with an Ahri, don't isolate yourself from Ahri, from your team, because especially if you're not level 6, because you can't just kick her away when she ultimates, which I'm sure you learned. Just kind of play around what you can. I don't know, it's hard to say, like, you should have had more late presence than Rek'Sai, because Rek'Sai is kind of a strong pick into you. So try and find place elsewhere on the map, and just try and make sure you're farming up and using your level 6 wisely. Other than that, that's all I've got for you guys for Game 1. Follow me over to Trinity Force Podcast 2. We're going to be doing rounds 2 and 3, and I finally got my Santa. Santa's here, guys.
Indeed.
Okay, there you go. I was like, did Santa leave already? But the spirit of Christmas.
I am the spirit of Christmas in September.
You're the spirit of Christmas in North America. Santa NA, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
Santa NA.
We're going to cut stream. We're going to go to Tree Force Podcast 2. We're going to set up round 2, and we will see you after the jump.